On this episode, we're going to explore some pretty awesome tools for scanning the internet using the Linux command line with a little bit of Claude Code as well. We're going to focus on network edge devices is how I tune some of the scans. But we're going to look at Shodan has I believe it's a new command line tool that they put out there. We're going to look at ZMap and ZGrab. Those both come from the same organization. We're going to look at a new tool called Nerva that does service fingerprinting, which is super fast. We'll tie it together with some vulnerability scanning with Nuclei, talk about a new tool that was released that does AI whitebox testing of web applications called Shannon. And then I had Claude Code create a custom Python script to tie all these tools together. So we'll look at that, and we'll have a lot of fun doing it. So stay tuned. Paul Security Weekly coming up next. This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where exploits run wild, packets aren't the only things getting sniffed, and the cocktails flow steady. It's Paul's Security Weekly. Somewhere right now, an attacker is testing the parts of your app your security tools cannot reach. The authenticated areas, the login flows, the hidden functionality behind credentials. Secure AI Navigator changes that. It automatically navigates real login flows just like an attacker would, exposing vulnerabilities and data leaks hiding behind authentication across user roles, session states, and authenticated API calls. No scripts to write, no brittle automation to maintain, just complete coverage in minutes instead of days. Because we didn't test behind login are the worst words in an incident report. Learn more at securityweekly.com/nowsecure. Zero Trust is clearly the future as threats get faster, quieter, and harder to detect. But implementing it shouldn't disrupt the business. ThreatLocker enforces default deny and execution in a way that remains enterprise-ready, scalable, and operationally clean. Unknown software is stopped cold, trusted apps stay contained, and drift is locked down across the environment. It's Zero Trust that works in real enterprises and prepares you for the threats ahead. See why CISOs are adopting it at securityweekly.com/ThreatLocker. Coming to you from Hacker Syndicate Studios, this is Paul's Security Weekly. This is episode number 919. We're recording this on Wednesday, March 4th, 2026, but you're going to be hearing this during the RSAC conference week. So I'm here with Josh Marpet. Josh, welcome.
Hello, how are you?
Doing great. Mr. Lee Neely is here with us. Lee, welcome.
Yeah, it's good to be here. This sounds like some really exciting stuff we're going to delve into.
Yeah, it's been on my list actually for a while. So also speaking of the RSAC conference, RSAC 2026, our Security Weekly listeners can save $100 on their RSAC 2026 All Access Pass. RSAC 2026 conference is taking place March 23rd to March 26th in San Francisco. You can register using the discount code by visiting securityweekly.com/RSAC26. Use the code 56U5SecWeekly. We hope to see you there. I don't believe I'll be going to RSA this year. But I am planning on going to B-Sides Charm coming up after that in the month of April. I'm actually we're talking about my vacation. I'm ending my vacation with some shenanigans in DC, and then my family flies home and I go to B-Sides Charm. So it should be fun. I get my own vacation after my vacation. Go to a HackerCon and hang out with friends. So let me share my screen and just run through. First, I want to run through some of these tools that I've researched and kind of put together. And I had Claude Code is so amazing. Like the text segments now look different thanks to Claude Code, which is great. So the tools that I selected to cover in this segment, they all run on the Linux command line. I know our listeners love the Linux tips, so we're going to be focused on Linux for much of the year. These tools, all run on the Linux command line. And the first one is Shodan. Now, most of us know Shodan, right, as the website that you go to. It scans the internet. We've interviewed the founder of Shodan on the show in the past as well. And when I was logged into Shodan a couple of weeks ago, I think, or pretty recently, it had this banner on the website, and it was like, "Hey, check out the Shodan command line interface." And I was like, "Well, that sounds interesting. I want to use Shodan from the command line because I love command line tools." And I'm like, "Wait, if we have command line tools, we can string those together and script them." Right. So I'm like, this is perfect. Now you could use the Shodan API, certainly, but the command line tool is kind of nice. And again, this is passive reconnaissance. It uses the command line tool, uses the API and pulls it in, which is nice for very fast querying and scanning. Now,
how granular is that command line tool?
Basically anything you can do in Shodan, I'll show you some of the syntax you can do in the command line tool.
Nice.
And Claude happily put together a guide.
Oh, no way. Seriously? That is awesome.
Yeah. So, I mean, you could go read the official documentation, or you could have Claude condense it for you and just show you a bunch of examples, which I tend to learn better by examples. So, I should probably put this documentation at least, and maybe my Python script in my Linux hacks repository, or perhaps a separate one. I'm not sure yet, but I'll look at scanning it. But again, I mean, you could prompt Claude to, customize how you tie these tools together. I might do it slightly differently based on what I did at first. When I get to the Shannon tool, which is a newer one, I'll explain why. So if you want to do active scanning of the internet, ZMap is a great tool for doing that. ZMap does the millions of packets per second, and it's tuned for host discovery, and just much faster than nothing against Nmap. Nmap is fantastic and very feature rich. I think a lot of these tools are trying to be much, much faster. Like, I'm going to scan fast, and if I miss something, oh well. So put your threat actor hat on. I'm scanning the entire internet for Fortinet devices. So if I find 5,000 Fortinet devices and I miss 1%, 2%, even 10%, I'm like, whatever. I still got plenty of targets. Whereas I believe Nmap is, I don't want to miss anything, is their philosophy, which I think is important too, right? And so Nmap obviously has been integrated into a lot of scanning tools and platforms. So you can license Nmap, include it in your product, because it is a very reliable, and not that it's slow, but it is a very reliable scanner. So that's what I think some of the differences are. And we've covered Nmap on the show so many times. It's nice to start looking at some of these other tools. Masscan's also one as well, but ZMap seems to be all the rage today. Once you identify hosts, there's a couple of tools that do service fingerprinting and try and do that very fast and at scale. And the two that I found, well, one is zgrab2, which is kind of the tried and true. It's been around for a little while. But Nerva is a new tool that comes from Praetorian, and Nerva does service fingerprinting. It's got about 140 protocols, and it's super fast. And it's actually, I asked Claude to incorporate both of those in my script. And I said, well, compare them. I'm like, what are the differences? And it was like, Nerva, I think, is better for what you're trying to accomplish. It's a little faster. I'm like, sweet, that's awesome. So I did pull down in the GitHub repositories for all of these tools into a directory, ran Claude Code, had it read all the documentation. So now Claude has context about all these tools. So then I was asking Claude to start putting together a script to tie them together. So then I wanted some, okay, as an attacker, right, I've scanned the internet, I found some hosts, maybe that's very specific to, I've found some specific firewall in the internet, then I've scanned that batch, the management ports that I care about, perhaps, and done service fingerprinting identification to say that's really a Fortinet, Cisco, SonicWall, whatever firewall I might be looking for. So then I've done the service fingerprinting on that to kind of make my results even a little more accurate. Then based on when I have those, I'm like, here's a list of the XYZ firewalls. Now go scan all the web interfaces and find any vulnerabilities using Nuclei. And you could tie in any kind of vulnerability scanner here. I told Claude to go research it, and it was like, hey, these aren't great options because these web app scanners have all not been updated in a really long time. So you probably want to use Nuclei. I'm like, cool, we'll use Nuclei. And so the end result, just a preview of what is coming in this segment. I ran it against my local network, and I didn't run it against the internet because that would take some time. But I ran it against my local network, which again, you should probably run different tools on your local network. But just to test that, I did that, and it found vulnerabilities that I was not aware of before. So I was like, wow, this works really well. Shannon is an interesting AI powered, they call it AI powered Whitebox pen testing. And I initially wanted to just integrate it to go find all these things that are web applications and then do a pen test of them using another AI tool. But the Shannon tool works by getting the repository of your target. Now, this is going to enable some amazing security research, probably not the best tool to integrate into this workflow, but I did want to talk about it as an additional tool that I've started testing. Now, I've done this without the Shannon tool. I've done this, and this is a great approach for finding vulnerabilities. So if you're a security researcher, bug bounty hunter, and you want to find vulnerabilities in a web application, maybe that company has a bug bounty for that web application, and maybe that web application is also open source. Now, I'll give you a great example. Many of the KVMs, Jet KVM and Nano KVM.
Oh, we had a segment about this, man.
Yeah, dude. So they have a web interface on them, right? And that web interface is all open source, which is, I mean, I applaud the company. But now if you're looking for bugs in that, you basically give an AI or a tool someone wrote like Shannon, which is an AI powered tool. Here's the source code for that web application. Here's a live target of that application. Now go find me vulnerabilities. So go look through the source code, understand how it works, understand where the vulnerabilities might be in the source code, then go see if you can craft payloads to see if those vulnerabilities are real in the actual application. It is hands down like the best way. Also, if it's firmware based and you get the firmware for it, you can get the firmware, unpack the firmware in the same directory and tell your AI, here's the source code, here's the firmware for it, here's a live target, have at it. And we've used that method very successfully to find vulnerabilities.
Okay, so do me a favor. Let me throw something at you. And I know you haven't hit all. Are there any tools you didn't talk about yet? Edgescan.
No,
I'm sorry.
So the last one is just a Python script that. So after I prompted Shodan and it collected all the information about these tools, I'm like, all right, now let's create a Python script to tie all these tools together. So I can basically just give it a target range, and it'll go start running all these tools. And then I further refined it to go, well, you can run Shodan or ZMap to find your initial targets. Then you can run zgreb or Nerva to do service fingerprinting, and then you run Nuclei against those results. And again, I'm still refining it, but I did run it and it worked great. So, Josh,
have you?
Question.
I literally like this is hilarious. I was, Jim Manico, right?
Yeah.
And I was just talking to him over the last 3 or 4 days about how bug bounty programs are going to be changing drastically because of AI. And he and I have been talking about what it takes to do and what's going to happen. And this is like, and now you just walk in here and waltz in, you son of a gun, and just hand me the recipe that people are going to, you realize the minute this show airs, people are going to be going, let me grab that and let me just set it loose on everything that has a bug bounty.
100%, and it's going to like my strategy. Like, let's just talk about firmware based stuff. So go find the companies that have firmware based devices that have bug bounties, right? Pull down their firmware, unpack it, which you can have the AI unpack it for you, but I'm telling you, don't spend your tokens on that. On-blob is great. It's delivered as a Docker container. So because it has a ton of dependencies, right? So to unpack firmware as an example, there's a lot of different file systems that it needs to understand to unpack firmware. And all of the dependencies for those are a huge pain in the butt. But the container for unblob has all of those in it. So you either use binwalk or both, like binwalk and unblob can unpack most firmware today. Now, you're going to run edge cases. Some of it's going to be encrypted. Some of it's not going to be able to unpack. But like, I want to say my guess is 80% of the firmware out there you can unpack with binwalk and unblob. So unpack your firmware, stuff that in a directory. If the company has any open source software or repositories associated with that device, put that in the same directory. then fire up Claude Code and go find vulnerabilities, right? And that's your bug bounty, right? Claude is totally capable of doing that. If it's not going to, I mean, it'll probably find vulnerabilities, and it'll also identify paths for you to go manually validate some of them. So I would say, like, in any given firmware, like maybe it finds automatically 50% of the vulnerabilities. The other 50% are like maybe some paths that you have to manually explore. But it's getting better, right? At just doing
It's getting
that
so much
automated.
better so fast, dude. It's not even funny.
Yeah. But if you're making that firmware, you have the source code to it. So this is even better, right? So internally, spin this up internally and just have it go start finding vulnerabilities and filing tickets for you. I mean, that would be great. Why pay for a bug bounty program? I mean, maybe you still have a bug bounty program, right? But if you're using that same tooling internally, I think we've always said this, like, you still should apply security to your application and find things and fix them, and then hope that the bug bounty finds stuff that you didn't find. But now you're going to find more stuff, I think, with Claude Code, which is crazy.
No, it's insane. And let me give you the other side of this. I have a friend who runs a red team, which also oversees the bug bounty. Is this real aspect? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They get all the bug bounty submissions, and he's telling me the amount of AI, and I'm going to use the word AI slop that they're getting
Yes.
is just crappy bug bounty submissions is insane.
Yeah, I'm
But
hearing
if
that.
you're, what's that?
I said I'm hearing the same.
Yeah,
I'm hearing
yeah.
the same.
But this is not. But that's just them going, hey, run a scanner and see what you find, and then submitting
Yeah.
it. That's because that's not properly formatted, not a proper process. That's the word I'm looking
Right.
for. What
Right.
you've done, Paul, is string together some lovely packages like Shodan. All of us have been using Shodan for God knows how long at this point.
Right.
It's basically embedded in our world.
Yep.
But between the I'm not going to say the replacements for Nmap, but these are enhancements of
Yeah.
Nmap's ideas on some of them, and then Shannon and Nuclei, and then Edgescan to pipeline this all together to create a process. That's the kicker. And
Right.
and at the end of
It
it,
automates the process for you, right? Because I would be running all these tools individually and then going, well, like, and the hard part that Claude figured out for me was, like when you do your initial scan with Shodan or ZMap, it's going to output the results in some format, right? Could be JSON, could be whatever. And then so it has some parsing in there that parses that for the next tool. And like it handled all of the data formatting and handoff between the tools for me. So I didn't have to write the code that goes, take the output from this, maybe modify it slightly to go run the next tool. And then when it scans it, massage the results or whatever, and then pipe it to that tool. I didn't have to write any of that code. It did it all for me.
So now you went from effectively your Nmap output dump to something very specific and relevant, right?
Yep. In a pipeline, right? So it built the pipeline for me to go run this tool, take its output, run that tool, and just march down the line. And it worked, which is amazing. Amazing.
Well, Josh reminded me of one of the gripes about pen test report is when the pen test report is essentially the output from the Nmap scan.
Yes.
That's not a value add. Yes,
Yeah.
I see him twitching in the corner there and going into some PTSD.
Oh, look, they
response.
scrubbed off the Nessus logo. Like, come on.
No, this is good.
I told it to focus on network edge devices because that was kind of that's been my focus lately. And also I'm trying to like mirror what threat actors would do when they scan the internet, because they're scanning the internet pretty heavily looking for these devices because they have so many remotely accessible vulnerabilities and they're exposed to the internet. So you'll see a lot of references to, like FortiOS, PanOS, and these are examples from the Shodan command line tool. So it put together like an entire tutorial for me on how to run Shodan from the command line, including options I had not explored before, which is awesome. So like you can search your net block for specific products. So one of the things I want to enable in this technical segment, right? Maybe you're not a threat actor. Maybe you're not a security researcher. Maybe you're trying to protect an organization today. You should be looking at some of these tools, right? You've got to be making sure that whatever you have exposed to the internet is not, for example, a network edge device that isn't up to date on patches. Because right now, I'm telling you, if you have that, threat actors have probably already compromised your system. So
Truth.
this is something you need to run like every day, have it create tickets on the results, and monitor your network edge, right? I mean, you can use attack surface monitoring or attack surface management products to do that. This is kind of like open source Linux command line, how you do it.
But here's the thing. I can pay somebody $1 million, and I'm joking, I don't know what it costs to run attack surface monitoring, or I can run this and it's free. Okay. And that's a big, interesting thing, because now we're talking about that buy versus build discussion, which is changing every day. And SaaS companies just lost a whole hunk of valuation because of that, because that buy versus build discussion is changing every bloody day due to AI, Claude Code being a huge part of that. Okay. You know, even though it's Anthropic and obviously a supply chain risk, sorry.
Yeah.
But the thing is like, this changes the buy versus build discussion. Let me ask you a question, actually, and I know this, I'm throwing this to you out of the blue, and I'm sorry, but I'm getting a lot of questions from enterprises about post-quantum cryptography and finding everywhere they're using asymmetric encryption. Does this have any aspect of doing a certificate scan, finding certificates, finding asymmetric cryptography, anything? I'm just curious.
A lot of the tools will
out of the blue. I did not prep him with this. So
I'm not sure how deep they'll go into like looking at the certificate. I know that ZGrab and Nerva will pull some of the certificate information, as will Shodan. In fact, there's some Shodan queries in here.
Right on the bottom there.
Yeah, right. Oh, expired or weak TLS. There's a question right there. So yeah, it can find, Shodan can find weak SSL protocols.
Oh, dude,
or expired certificates. Which
I
didn't know Shodan could do that. And I think you do get certificate information from some of the other tools. I haven't really delved into it. I think it's just the metadata in the certificate. I'm not sure how much you can glean from that. I think you can probably glean the protocols and whether it's expired.
If I can get the protocols in the Cipher suite,
the Cipher suite
that it's using, then I can tell you if it's post-quantum or not.
Yeah.
And if I do this, if I run this internally, I'm going to see the internals, not just the external, the client facing. And so I got to tell you, I think this is a huge, huge, huge thing.
Yeah, because to implement SSL properly is an entire segment in and of itself.
Yeah.
I have another tool that allows you to test every attack scenario against SSL. And specifically, I built that to test firmware-based devices and their firmware update mechanism. So if their firmware update mechanism,
chain that in here?
You might. So the way I do that though is I have an intercepting proxy that does that, because to exploit SSL, right?
Different.
You need so I have an intercepting proxy that has all the tools to go from everything from like spoofing time, like if you can become an NTP server and change the time on your device, there's timing based attacks against SSL. So I have an entire suite that I use to test. I'm going to get permission to open source that script that sets up that man in the middle thing, and because I think I did a tech segment on it already, but I think I've improved it greatly since then. So I need to release it so people can use it. You're on mute, Josh.
Sorry, but all these tools here are open source already.
Yes.
You tied them together, and the glue code you're using, is that going to be open sourced, or?
Yeah, I can put that in my GitHub. Yeah.
So, okay. Because I think that using this as a PQC inventory tool, not examining it, not seeing if it's vulnerable, just inventorying your certs. Hey, here on this server, you've got these certs. These are PQC. These are TLS 1.1. You probably should update them. That's it. Just an inventory.
I didn't know you could search for specific vulnerabilities with Shodan either. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
They've had that for 10 years.
Yeah. Or has any known vulnerability right there.
Yep.
Why would you? I mean, you got to pay for the Shodan, right? It's API. I have like a basic
like $20
account. Yeah, I'm not sure if you wanted more API queries, you can give them more money, but I don't think it's exorbitant amounts of money to run Shodan. To basically, like, I would recommend run this against all your net blocks every single day, and then create a ticket if it finds something, right? And that's like a couple of prompts for Claude Code to create that now, especially with Shodan on the command line. You could just fire up a system and get it done.
This is the boss. We're paying $20 a month because I'm going to make sure all our internet-facing services don't have any vulnerabilities.
Right. I wish more organizations did this, but hence the tech
Well,
segment.
if they did, we wouldn't have jobs.
One-
So,
Right.
One podcast at a time, Paul.
And you can download the data. Like it's pretty amazing. Alerts and trigger. I mean, so it created some great documentation for that, and it did the same thing for all the tools, right? So it shows you how to parse the Shodan data to create a target list specifically for ZMap, and then it's like a whole guide of filters. Dude, awesome documentation that it created, and then it did the same for every single tool. So here's
Shodan's
ZMap.
only going to show you external. So if you deployed this
Yes.
internally, how are you going to build the target list?
So you would use ZMap.
Okay, ZMap would be.
Yeah.
So externally, if you're running this externally, you're going to use Shodan to build your target list. And you could use ZMap, but Shodan is passive. Internally, you're going to use ZMap and just scan everything, and that'll generate the target list. Am I correct?
And when you use ZMap, ZMap's not meant for internal scanning, so they actually block the RFC 1918 ones, so you can just uncomment that in the block list. It's really meant to scan millions of IP addresses on the internet, but there's no reason why you can't run it internally.
But
now, is ZMap similar to Masscam?
Yes.
So, with ZMap, do you have any trouble with ISPs blocking it?
Yeah, ISPs kind of hate when you do scanning, I'm told. So I try not to do that from my house. You probably spin up some kind of cloud instance somewhere to do that.
Yeah, okay.
And I'm not sure which ones are better. Certain activities you can request permission from your cloud provider to do certain things. I know at my day job, I don't know how much about me saying this, but you can petition, like if you want to do something that you're afraid they're going to flag, right, as suspicious activity, you can contact them and say like, hey, we're a cybersecurity company. Like, we really need to do this. Like, is that cool? Can you sign off on it? And we actually got sign off from a cloud provider to do that. And so I'm assuming like similar thing if you told them like, hey, I'm going to scan the internet kind of thing, can you like not turn off my VPS? That'd be great. Thanks.
Yeah. So actually that reminds me of a story a number of years ago. There was a cloud service we were looking at, and somebody was claiming it had all kinds of vulnerabilities, and they had done their own scan, but they had made two mistakes. One, they didn't get authorization from the cloud service provider, so the cloud service provider wouldn't accept their feedback because it wasn't an authorized scan. And two, they weren't scanning the target environment. This was a case where they had scanned the commercial, not the government provided solution.
Right.
And they were well intended, by the way. I'm not throwing them under the bus. They just made two what I would call rookie mistakes.
Right.
Easily fixed today. I mean, the information's out there, but so useful to have that. And then you have a whole different conversation when it's all above board.
Yeah. So here's your ZMap. Then it outputs the zgrab, right, which is a service identification. So it walks you through all the zgrab documentation and how to run zgrab to do that. And then it creates files for you, configuration files, which is awesome. And then it gives you the JQ commands to query the JSON data to extract some results from it. Gives you a bunch of examples. It's created awesome documentation, which is great. And then it should talk about Nerva in here as well. I don't know. Maybe I didn't have it document Nerva.
Nerva just went by on the screen.
Oh, did it?
I saw Nerva, didn't I?
Yeah, it documents.
Yeah, you did.
It documents Nerva as well.
See Nerva results.json.
Yeah.
They're right above the bottom.
So Nerva's that new tool from Praetorian. It's been running really great. It's good, fast service identification. And then it's doing nuclei, templated base scans of nuclei, right? So it's running just certain nuclei templates that have tags of default login, IoT, or network, right? That's how I tune the scan. You could conceivably tune this however you like. So it runs nuclei against all of them to do vulnerability discovery. And then it talks about Shannon, right? This is a tool, again, more for security research, probably not the best tool to integrate with this particular setup. But I was just like trying stuff. I was like, hey, what about this tool?
What does Shannon do again? I'm sorry.
Yeah. So Shannon, if you give it the repo, the GitHub repo of the software that's running on a target, it'll do a AI powered Whitebox pen test against it.
Oh, so it'll actually build the repo and then
uses
test
the repo. So like the example I gave was like, I don't know, Juice Shop is like a vulnerable on purpose web app. So they clone the Juice Shop repo into a directory, and then they set up a Juice Shop instance as a target, and then you just run Shannon, and it understands the code inside the repo and goes like, I think there's a command injection here. Let me go to the real web app and see if I can do command injection, which is how I've used Claude actually in the past to do vulnerability discovery. And that method works well. I'm curious now. I haven't fully tested Shannon against some live targets, but you certainly could.
So it feels like Shannon just crossed the stream of static and dynamic testing.
Exactly,
which is awesome. And I'm also thinking that's open source, right?
Yeah, Shannon's all open source.
I'm trying to think of how much I paid for tools that did that in the past.
Right.
Were like, and by the way, the tools weren't bad. They worked. It was cool. It was just like, holy crap, I can do this for free now.
Yep.
I'm wondering how many people are out there hitting pause on our recording just to go try shit.
Yeah. And then I had to create a Python script that ties everything together. So like you can run it and then you can select which tool, right? So as I kind of glom on tools, so I could add masscan as a tool. And then when you run my Python script called Edgescan, you could tell it, pull the results from Shodan or ZMap, get service fingerprinting or masscan, right? I could add masscan in there. Then it passes it either to Nerva or zgrab2, and then it goes to Nuclei. And quite frankly, you could add on another web app scanner if you wanted to. Wapiti was one that it identified, so I could integrate that one. And then on the command line, you get to choose your own adventure, right? On the command line, scan the internet with ZMap, service fingerprint with this tool, find vulnerabilities with this tool. And then I had it outputting like a markdown. I'm like, I want I want the JSON results from this, but I want it in the end, a human readable result. And then I had it create documentation for Edgescan. I had it add a verbose option. And when it does that, it knows how to enable verbose mode in all of the tools. And it'll just do that for you, so you can see more of the output. So if it's getting stuck or taking a long time, which was happening to me this morning, I can kind of see where it's stuck. And then I went back and I'm like, why is this taking so long? And it's like, well, adjust your timeouts here. And there's actually options to adjust your timeouts as well. So
nice.
Like whether you're scanning the internet or internally or whatever, you can kind of tune your timeouts. You can tune your target ports as well, rate limiting, and all kinds of stuff in the Edgescan script.
So,
which is pretty cool.
So you've got this coming out, the output. I want to talk about the output for a second.
Oh yeah, we can look at the output right here.
Yeah, do you mind? Because you have it coming out as a JSON for machine readable, and all of the tools are feeding into the same JSON, right?
I think that most of it is JSON that they're passing between the tools.
Okay, so they're passing JSON between the tools,
and then
at
the
end of
Nuclei
your chain of tools.
Nuclei generates a JSON report, and then also runs a separate command to take the JSON and create a markdown file, which is what we're looking at now.
So this is the human readable file we're looking at right now. Which
I know it wasn't able to identify any of the vendors. This is actually my local network, but what's awesome is on my Real-Link camera system, it found an information disclosure that I didn't know was there.
That's cool.
So on my Real-Link, this is actually the Real-Link controlling recorder.
So if anybody wants to break
device.
into Paul's house, these are the ways you do it. Okay, just to be clear.
Well, if you could access this, basically you can pull the Nginx configuration file from the device without authentication. That was the finding.
Oh, that's interesting.
But it found
Would
that.
that
It didn't,
that
right?
wouldn't have your SSID in the Nginx file. That's for
No,
its
no,
own
no.
user interface. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
fine.
yeah. It's just information about the app, behind
Yeah.
it, basically.
So that's interesting. And my other point is that you're now building a JSON and Markdown repository of information about whatever your targets were, right?
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
And you can dump that into some kind of like GitHub or some kind of version controlled system to keep track of your results and actually compare them over time
Yeah.
for maturity management discussions.
Mm-hmm.
And also, can anything else? Sorry, my point is you've built a chain of tools that shares information, dumps it at the end into a machine in human readable format. And you've explicitly stated that you can replace tools, add tools, do whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
So the point is that this becomes a workflow that is infinitely. I could build a workflow for IoT. I could build a workflow for web app. I could build a workflow for internal, one for external. Am I vaguely correct here?
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going next with it was maybe having like a scan profile
Mm-hmm.
built into it, and the scan profile, maybe you define the type of scan you want to run and what you're looking for. Like, hey, I'm really focused on these ports. I really want to find this type of device. I really want to focus on this vendor, and really target it towards that. So it would only go find, for example, Fortinet devices, right? And I have to have it modify some of the code to do that, but a lot of the underpinnings are already there. So I can say, go find specifically Fortinet devices that are listening on these ports, and it would go find that. And then you could have like multiple profiles, right? So you could profile it, and you could give it extra information too, like use these Shodan queries, use these ports, use this service fingerprint. So you could kind of guide it maybe with a profiling system. And again, I didn't spend tokens writing a lot of the tools. Like, these tools exist already for doing this type of scanning, service identification, and vulnerability scanning. So I didn't have to build everything from scratch. This is just gluing stuff together.
Yeah, but and I get that. And it's still like, Paul, seriously, this is still very respectable. Okay. I didn't write every line of it. Oh, like, no, dude, this is cool.
Oh, I should also note this only took me like maybe a couple hours.
Oh my God. Okay. So my point is you've built an engine that can be profiled in multiple different ways, outputs in ways that are immediately importable into, I don't know, PlexTrack, Word, whatever you want,
Right.
and can be used. This is a choose your own adventure security tool.
Yeah. Ever feel like your network infrastructure is stuck in the past? Meet Meter, the company reimagining what it means to get and stay online. Meter delivers full-stack networking, wired, wireless, and cellular, all in one seamless, scalable, and secure solution. From hardware design and firmware to software, deployment, and support, Meter streamlines every part of your network while giving you all the control and transparency you need. Whether you're managing a branch office, retail stores, or a massive data center, Meter gives you performance, reliability, and the visibility you need to stay in control. Thanks to Meter for sponsoring. Go to securityweekly.com/meter to book a demo now. That's securityweekly.com/meter, METER. Yep.
I don't even know how to explain how important this is.
Well, and you've also you've not totally, but you've largely avoided the whole let's go find money for this project. I mean, you've still got human resources and time, but you could roll this out on and do incredible things on a very low overhead.
I think I'm a $100 a month Claude Code subscription, and I didn't use all my tokens, like not even close, on this project.
So we skipped 4 lattes and 2 meetings, and it's paid for.
Yep.
Well, and it's already done. He doesn't they don't need to pay for it. They just need to pay for
know
their Claude Code. Yeah, no. But my point is that this is, what this is? This is the AI version of Metasploit.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Modules and pieces and parts written in whether it's Lua or whatever the hell they're writing it in these days. I can't remember.
Yeah, no, it's
yeah.
But this is the modular, not vuln scanning, not pen testing, security testing.
So One question: are any of these tools looking for contributions?
Yeah, the ZMap project was
Good
an
one, Lee.
interesting one. They've got a lot of tools
Mm-hmm.
that come from what is the organization? The ZMap project, collection of open source measurement tools for performing large scale studies of the hosts and services that compose the public internet. So that's for ZMap, ZGrab, and then they've got like a whole here. I can show you. They've got like a whole host of other tools.
See, the reason I brought that up is I'm thinking here's some really cool stuff that we could really kick ass with. And if any of these guys are like, give us $5 for helping our research or whatever, I would say if it's working for you, do it because hello,
Oh, here you
let's
go,
keep it
Josh.
going.
Z certificate is a command line utility that parses X509 certificates, perform browser validation and zlint tests, and produces JSON encoding of the certificate. So if you want to get cipher
Cool.
suites, looks
Dude,
like
I
that's the
need
tool.
this so bad. I can't tell you how many calls I take on a weekly basis that are all about post-quantum cryptography and how, and the first question that everybody's asking this year is how do I figure out what the hell I have right now? I actually had to build a document. I've got 36 different places you can find asymmetric encryption in your enterprise. And it
Mm-hmm.
ranges from, 5 different iterations of TLS. There's internal, external, blah, blah, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But cryptography, cryptocurrency wallets, SSH keys, APIs, third
Mm-hmm.
parties. So the point is that they're desperate for tools. People are charging ungodly amounts of money for these friggin' tools, dude. Like ungodly, not joking. If
Yeah,
you
no,
could,
it's
if you could add Z certificate into this and turn it on, you know what I mean? And it
Yeah.
can find. I'll send you the list of all the data types that
Yeah,
I've
because I
found.
think there's two approaches, right? You're going to look for it on the network, right?
yeah.
So you need a network scanning component. But
Network
then
traffic
if you
analysis, yeah.
if you have certain devices that are firmware based, you can pull down that firmware, you can unpack it, and then you can tell Claude, and this would probably be a pretty easy prompt, right? Series of prompts that, hey, look through this firmware, and I want to know about all of the usages of encryption in this firmware, right?
Yeah.
Like, tell me
Right.
which SSL libraries it has. Tell me how it's implementing SSL in the web interface.
Which API keys are hard coded?
Yep.
Like,
Look for API keys. And then the other encryption thing that gets people is like remote access. So SSH, for example, encryption protocols. And then what technologies are they using to encrypt the passwords?
yeah. Oh God, that's so
Right.
like you would believe how many firmwares have stuff. You're like, we deprecated this 15 years
Yeah.
ago. Why are you?
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking this I might make your head explode, Josh, but this would be helpful to find the stuff that's been left on for backwards compatibility.
Well, exactly.
We can't turn that off because
Right.
Joe down the hall might maybe use it once every 17.3
Oh, dude,
days.
how many TLS 1.0, TLS 1.1 have you found because there was a badging computer that still needed it?
Yep.
Because there was
been
an
a while,
X-ray
but
machine
yeah.
that still needs it.
It's
because
usually the
there's-
firmware based stuff. Yeah. And like I said, if you can
Right.
unpack that firmware, you can do a pretty comprehensive study of what's in there. I want to say we find some of that at my day job. I know I've had those conversations to
So
look for basically not so much quantum safe, but I'm also looking for like weak or misconfigured
yeah, of course,
encryption
but that's
protocols,
right along
right?
with it.
Yeah.
If
Yeah,
I
I
can
mean,
do an
it's-
inventory of everywhere that is doing any kind of encryption, anything, I don't care what it is,
Right.
any
Mhm.
kinds of keys, secrets, encryptions, certificate, whatever, then
Well,
you've
because
got.
we don't have a C bomb, but we could certainly create one if we have access
Yeah.
to the firmware.
Oh wait, you could use this to create a C bomb
Oh yeah, you can
and a firmware
No
bomb.
way.
And at this point, you've got what I'm sure that Cyclone DX has a generator that's open sourced. You could attach that in here, and any firmware you feed to it, any web app, any firmware, anything you feed to it, woof, it goes through it, rips it apart. It goes, I found cryptography here, and here.
Mhm.
Here's your
Yeah.
C bomb. By the way, did you notice SSL 3.0 on that old X-ray machine?
Yep.
Right. I mean, you have this range. I'm imagining it, like a graph. Here down here is the TLS 1.0, triple DES or other fairly weak, and over here you got your post quantum. I mean, it's a spectrum, right? And you really got to deal with this weak stuff. Eventually, you got to get over
Yep.
here.
Yep.
Yeah.
If you don't know where you are, you can't move that bar.
Well,
What,
even
like,
even
seriously,
easier
that's why
too.
the
You know what's
inventory.
interesting? I use
Yeah.
Claude to tell me about any firmware protections that involve cryptographic algorithms. So, is secure boot enabled on this platform? And not UEFI secure boot, but when we talk about firmware based devices,
Just anything.
Yeah.
they have their own facilities to do a protected, cryptographically verified boot process, right? It's verified. Same thing as UEFI secure boot, but we've talked about how that looks on ESP32, right? You can enable secure boot or not. You can also enable. So there's three things. So that's the first one. The second one is firmware encryption, right? So typically that's earlier stage, like, hey, is this firmware encrypted or not? Binwalk has facilities to do the histogram, right, and look at the data. Claude can analyze the firmware. I've asked it, like, does this implement secure boot or firmware encryption? So that's encrypting the actual firmware. But the third thing is the firmware itself cryptographically verified? So when I apply a firmware update, is there a cryptographic validation that firmware is authorized? Not an MD5 or SHA-256 hash. That's just telling you if it was preserved in transit or not. Which that's important too. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, no.
But on the device itself, is it actually cryptographically validating that firmware? So those are the three things. So when I get new firmware, I'll use Claude now, and I'll ask it, like, tell me about any of these protections. And since it can pull apart the firmware, like, it can look at the bootloader, and it can, you can also run it in emulation mode. So I've done things where, like, I've had Claude run it in emulation to get the boot up sequence. So if I can, even from a UART interface, if I can get the boot up sequence, I can feed that text into Claude. I can say, here's U-boot, booting up this device. Tell me from the boot up log, are there any evidence of any of the encryption things that I talked about, those three things? And like, when I've done that, it's like, nope, it doesn't do any kind of secure boot, it doesn't do firmware encryption, and it's not cryptographically validating the firmware. Sweet.
I'm seeing this. I had this sort of left turn in Albuquerque here thing. I'm thinking, as you ran through that, Paul, have you considered developing, like, welcome to 2026, here's the kind of things you need to be looking for in terms of firmware security? Like, it's not just checksum. It's all these things you just said.
Yeah, it's I probably need to have a firmware reverse engineering cheat sheet.
Yeah, because it seems like
you do.
Yeah, this seems like it's really table stakes anymore.
It helps push these manufacturers and vendors to actually do this stuff. So the more security researchers we have that are looking at this stuff and pointing out, like, hey, you haven't implemented secure boot or any of these protections, it's kind of starting to force their hand. I can't talk about the disclosures that aren't public yet, but there's some wins there, right? We're making slow progress in convincing people, and I can't wait to talk about the specifics and especially who the vendor is, because it's a really exciting moment, I think, in security, that they're starting to understand this and implement some of these protections, which are super, super important in my mind to locking these platforms down, right? I mean, this is
very cool.
There's no silver bullet, but it certainly helps, right? Make these platforms more resilient to attacks, and kind of upping the standard to say, hey, when you produce a device, it should have these things, right? If only we had a standards body compliance that says they have to do these things to sell into certain verticals, at least, that would be awesome too.
Would be. You're getting me all excited, buddy.
Yeah, seriously, like Paul, you like casually threw something together that is going to upset the industry, man.
Yeah,
I'm serious. I'm not joking.
But you should be scanning your network edge for this stuff, like, religiously,
like
daily.
Religiously.
People are doing vuln scans. They're not doing.
Yeah.
They're not doing the extent of what you're talking. They're not saying, okay, let's extract and rip apart and check the firmware on every single effing
Right.
device that scan finds, not on a daily basis. And you know,
Well, no, not that.
the and it's
But
firmware
regularly.
and it's web apps and it's, you know, there's holy crap. There's so many companies charging so much money for not even close to this right now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be interesting too. Like, I really want like an end of life scanner too. Right. I think
Oh.
LLM, because determining, I mean, you guys know, and most of us listening too know the challenges in, okay, I got to find my devices, right? Then I got to know which hardware model that it is. And then I
Mm-hmm.
got to know which firmware it's running, and then which firmware I need to go to. And I need the path to get there, right? So because the path to get there might be, I have to install version 1 and then version 2 and then version 3 in that
Mm-hmm.
order. And determining what your upgrade path is for your given devices, super hard. But an LLM can tell you, because I've prompted LLMs. I'm like, so I have this device from this company, and it's this hardware version, and it's running this firmware. Tell me what my upgrade path is, and it can help you figure it out. So I'd love to have this interface into LLMs that allows people to do that, because keep in mind, you go to the bigger companies like Cisco and Fortinet as examples, they have tools, right? And most of us have worked with this in Cisco. It's like an upgrade planner tool, because it's so intricate and there's a lot of details there as to determining what you have and how to upgrade it. So that's important too.
Yeah, but sorry, I'm still reeling. Like, you just threw together with 2 hours of Claude Code, you threw together the modern Metasploit, and it's blowing my friggin' mind, dude.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically I'd recreated an attack surface monitoring.
Attack surface monitoring, certificate inventorying,
Mm-hmm.
cryptography inventorying. With 10 minutes more of work, you're going to be building cryptography bills of materials. You're talking about keys and secrets, not management, but key and secret discovery. What's the right word?
Yep.
You're talking about, and it's modular. That's the big thing.
Yep.
Like, what you did was very cool. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think you didn't harp on it. But the modularity of this
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like
is what
swapping in and out
makes it.
tools is really just like a couple of prompts, right? Now, it can't be willing.
And that's
I
important.
say a couple of prompts because you gotta prompt it correctly, right?
Mhm.
So I will typically do two. Like, once I have a project of this size, especially, I will do 2 prompts. I'll be like, I want to add this tool, create a plan with milestones to integrate this tool. And it might ask me some questions, right? It goes into planning mode, and it might say, well, when I add this tool, do you want this option, that option, or something different? And you can prompt it again. And then it'll build the plan. And then you go through the plan, and you might accept the plan for the way that it created it. And it hasn't written any code yet. So you can go, yeah, I like step 1, step 2, and you can tell it do step 1, step 2, but in step 3, just do part A, not B, or whatever it is. And then it goes and adds your tool. Then it tests it, make sure there's no errors. Then you run it. Sometimes you get an error. You feed that error back into Claude, and you go, hey, I ran it, got this error, and it goes, oops, adjust this, that, or the other thing, updates the code, and then you have a new feature. So that's typically the workflow in Claude. And again, time depends on how complex you're getting with it. But
Dude, time, like, you need to take.
Yeah.
Oh God, I got it. Are you familiar with the concept of portable apps? Do you know that whole thing that portable apps does? You've just built the security researchers portable apps.
yeah, I mean, nothing stops you from putting this in a container and just running. I mean, that's a few more Claude. I've done that. Claude's great at building a container. Like, hey, we built this great thing. Like, now let's build a container that contains all of these tools and the Python script, and then you could just deploy it as a container that runs continuously, is scanning your edge. And the last step would be like the integration point. Like how, once the scan completes and it produces a report, what do you want to do with that? You want to create a ticket? You want to create a Slack notification? You want to do both? What have you? That would be the next step, which is amazing that we can prompt our way to building these security tools for specific purposes and integrate it into a workflow without a lot of the heavy lifting of developing. I still think development experience helps, but
Yeah. But
just tying tools together and creating a workflow. I mean, this was pretty low. I mean, there's some code in the, in the Python script that I got to go back and look at, make sure it's not heinous, but Claude's been pretty good lately. Opus 4.6 is like a complete
oh my
game
God,
changer,
it's such a step up.
Complete game changer. I even noticed like I don't have to be as specific with some of my prompts with 4.6, is it's much better.
Dude, I have no shame in saying this. I live in Claude now.
Yeah.
I use Daniel Meissler's PAI infrastructure, and I live in Claude. It holds workspaces for all of my projects, my tasks, everything.
Yeah. So what is that, like a personal productivity tool?
Yeah. PAI is it uses Claude Code. It lives on top of Claude Code, just to be clear, okay? And it's a command line interface based system where it runs in stages. So you say, hey, do XYZ. And it says, okay, it determines what level that is, what skills it needs. There are built-in skills, and it can write its own. It can have standing orders. It has markdown documents that tell it about itself. Who is that that person? It tells it there's one about me. Who am I? There's a markdown document for every project and workspace. There is, and then it not only does the thinking through of what the task is and what needs to happen and what are all the pieces of it, where it breaks it down and asks me to check the breakdown, but it also has a built-in, it comes back and has another iteration of Claude Code check and verify that it's doing things properly. And that's
interesting. I like that for
so
workflow.
Self-verifies.
So I take my projects like, I don't know what I can say publicly about what because I've used it for things that we haven't announced yet, but they can say, take this project and it'll build the context for me, basically. Because I'm doing this on a one-off thing. I'm like manually grabbing materials, stuffing it in a directory, then running Claude Code, and then going, I got this project and I want you to work on it. Here's what I want you to learn. Here's what I want the output to be, like, and go do it. And it works really well for that. But it sounds like Daniel's Meissler stuff helps me streamline that a lot better.
It learns who you are and learns what you like to say and learns how you like to say it and learns how you like to do it. And then I told it to name itself, and it did. And
that's pretty amazing. Now, although Claude is not great at writing, though.
It's surprisingly good when you train it for a little while.
Yeah, I've trained a Perplexity model to write as me, and that's been working pretty well.
PAI has the memory, so I gave it some of my writing samples.
That's what I did.
And then, but then it's permanent. It knows always, because it's honestly, I started off by calling it.
I tried to replicate that with Claude, and it started to get really fancy and create a thing. And I use the web interface. I have to get back to it. I probably just need to go back and train Claude to write as me, the same way I trained Perplexity.
Just download PAI. Honestly,
yeah,
it's a teensy
I could probably
bit
create a blog post writing skill. Well, it's not just blog posts. Like I need to have a skill in a facility that writes as Paul, right? And the way that I build that is, I'm like, look, the first resource you're going to look at, it writes as Paul, but for Eclipsium. So I'm even specific with not just general writing, but when I write, I need to write materials for Eclipsium. And those materials could be blog posts, webinar presentations and descriptions, social media posts. Like, here's Eclipsium's website. Here's 5 or 6 blog posts that I wrote. So here's my writing style. And then I need to go prompt it. And I need to say, I even use it for product descriptions. So when we build a new threat detection, I take what the team writes, I run it through Perplexity. I'm like, make this better in the context of what we do at Eclipsium and Paul's writing style. And it comes back with much better descriptions for threat detection in the product. But I need to get this over to Claude, because I don't know, the Perplexity one seems to work pretty well.
Just go
Do
build
the
PAI. It's a
Yep.
it's a GitHub. It takes
Mhm.
10 seconds. Well, 10 minutes. And then tell it, hey, I want you to build me a skill about writing like me. Here are
Yep.
some of my and you just run it in terminal.
Yep.
And it just, I talk to it in terminal. I have a terminal window open now 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I run and I SSH into it from my phone, and I have another iteration of it running on my phone. They talk to each other because they're sharing the same database of memories.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just an AI research assistant at this point.
Yeah.
It's more. And I don't know how much more, but I'm finding out, and it's fascinating.
Does it let you kind of go between projects, or is it just like one
Oh yeah.
interface?
No.
Okay,
I
can
have
switch.
I in the same prompt, I can tell it, hey, for VCRI, do this, and for Cyturus, do this, and for do this, and it goes, okay, and boom, boom, boom. And if it goes, hey, did you want this done for this project or this project? It calls them workspaces, but each workspace can have multiple projects. Each project can, like, it doesn't care. It is literally designed to encompass my life, and I'm good with that.
Nice. That's awesome.
I have to keep a task list for every project, for every workspace. And then there's a compiled task list, and I tell it, hey, remind me about, and it goes, Josh, you got to do this. Thank you. It nags me like motherfucker. It nags me about stuff. But you know what? ADHD is good for that.
Yeah. We need the nagging. Yep. 100%.
Right. And it's very gentle. It's like, come on, Josh, you need to do this. Come on, Josh, you need to do this.
Right.
All right.
This was awesome, but I think we need to finish it. So, leave them wanting more, Paul.
Yeah, that's exactly.
What's the next? What's next for this project, Paul?
I'm gonna look at some other tools to integrate with it, and I like the profiling idea of creating like a profile. Like I want to tell it to scan for specific things, right, and have multiple kind of scan profiles. Where you could almost tell it like which tools to run in the chain. So I have a configuration file. Like I want you to go look for Fortinet firewalls. I want you to use Shodan. I then want you to use Nerva. Then I want you to scan those nuclei, and then maybe the reporting mechanism and alert notification, and have a profile for each one. And then you could have multiple jobs running, right? So script to say, go run my Fortinet discovery, every day against these targets. Go run general discovery or whatever. That'd be cool.
And if anybody wants to recommend some tools, Paul's always willing to listen.
Yeah, I should probably add mass scan, although I don't know, it's interesting like which tool ends up being the winner, right? We have to see.
Well, if it's modular, anybody can do any tool they want.
People create a new tool, especially now everyone's using Claude Code. New tools are coming up all the time, and a lot of them are great. A lot of them are AI slop, but a lot of them are great, right? So, outstanding. Well, check out my GitHub. I'll try and put my works from all these tech segments on my GitHub so that you can use them as well.
Bravo.
Awesome. Josh Lee, thank you so much. Thanks everyone for listening and watching this edition of Paul's Security Weekly. That brings us to time. We'll see you next show. Over and out.